You know, in this week's episode of Comic Class, I was going to talk about that potential Fox-Disney deal, but that fell through in about 10 minutes. So now I need something new to talk about. What's something that happened in the world of comic books that was really big this week? Tell you what, I can't think of anything, so I'm just going to check Twitter and see what everybody on there is talking about. And if you'll excuse me, I'm rather parched. So while I check the internet, I'm just going to take a big swig out of this drink. I'm sure it's going to work out fine. Well, that's alarming. Hello everyone, it's me, Aaron, Professor Thorgy, your guide to all things geeky, and I just had to drink about 10 cups of Coca-Cola before I was able to get that take right. Now I know how Mean Joe Green feels. Oh my god, why didn't I just drink water? That much syrup is killing me. But yes, this week, something interesting happened. I already had a completely different episode planned for today, but it's rare that something can happen in the world of comic books that's so big, it will force you to push all your other plans out of the way. But it was announced yesterday, or for me, just a few hours ago, that Michael Bendis would be leaving Marvel and going over to DC. Now, I'm sure that at least a couple of you aren't the biggest comic book fans, or at least you don't follow Marvel and DC all that much. You mainly just focus on the indie stuff. So to everyone out there like that, let me just say, this is such alarming news that a comic book website literally made this their April Fool's Day joke several years ago. That's how big this is. They had to put it up there to alarm people because the idea of it was so preposterous, it was only fitting for an April Fool's Day joke. This would almost be like if back in 1976, Stan Lee left Marvel to go and work at DC. Except for two major differences. One being that back in the 1970s, Marvel was doing okay. These days, nobody knows how Marvel is doing. Some reports say they're doing alright, some say they're not doing alright. And most of the ones that say they're not doing alright is largely reflected in what Marvel is currently doing with a lot of their series. It really looks like Marvel is desperately trying to get fan approval at the moment, which does not speak highly to how well you're doing. But the other big difference is that back in the 1970s, Stan Lee still pretty positively viewed. Michael Bendis, kind of all over the place. Yeah, I was checking Twitter earlier today and half my feed was saying Marvel is doomed and the other half was saying Marvel is saved. And honestly, you're both kind of right on this one. Just to warn you guys, in today's video, I'm kind of going to be jumping all over the place. How is that different from every other video? I beat you to it, comment section. No, I'm going to be jumping all over the place because there is so much to discuss with this, and yet we know nothing about it. Typically, whenever a story breaks and we know nothing about it, I typically don't like to make a video on that, simply because I view it's kind of irresponsible to go in there and just start commenting on something that you know nothing about. However, this is so big, I feel like we have to comment on it. We have to speculate on it because these are the biggest question marks I've seen in a comic book news story in years. So let's go ahead and just talk about what this could possibly mean for Marvel. And if none of you have ever seen a video of mine where I talked about Michael Bendis, let me just go ahead and get my own personal feelings out of the way. When I went on Twitter this morning, I saw the news story break, but I also had a ton of messages from people, and one of the first messages I got was from someone going, "Looks like your mortal enemy is finally leaving Marvel." I want to make it clear, Michael Bendis is not my mortal enemy, because honestly, it's kind of stupid to look at some person you've never met who just writes funny books and go, "Well, that's my mortal enemy." You need better mortal enemies if that's who you're viewing as your mortal enemy. Alright, let's all just chill the fudge out, because I feel like the term mortal enemy is being thrown around too loosely. And also, if I had to really point at a bad guy at Marvel and blame for all the stuff that Bendis has done, it wouldn't really be Bendis, it would be the editors over there who just go, "Here's the keys to the kingdom, do whatever you want, man. No one's gonna stop you. Hey man, free reign over everything." Because I love Michael Bendis. when he really cares. And that's the problem, because in the early days of Brian Michael Bendis' career, that dude was amazing. That was my go-to guy. That was the guy who could do no wrong. And then he got handed the Avengers book, and it's very clear they stepped away and said, do whatever you want. And speaking as a longtime Avengers fan, I was so excited until I started reading his run, and I went, wait, what? The Scarlet Witch just went crazy? Like that? Oh, what? And she's just killing members of the Avengers left and right? And now they're a bunch of like street level heroes? And they're out of the mansion? It's, okay, alright, tell you what. He's still my favorite guy out there. I'm just gonna wait and see what he's got planned from this. And he had ideas, but he never really had the best execution. Like, I can point to certain storylines in his new Avengers run that I thought were good, but I can never really point to anything that I thought from start to finish was really great. And a lot of those storylines I thought were good were in between large spans of just, what the heck are you doing? Style storylines. Tile storylines. He wrote a bunch of tile storylines. It was basically the Avengers just laying down a bunch of bricks. Bricks are not tiles, you idiot. Alright. So yeah, I wasn't really a fan of his Avengers run, and he stayed on the Avengers forever. He was on there longer than any other writer, and I can't really point to anyone out there who really enjoyed it after, say, I don't know, Siege. After Siege, I can't find anybody who really just stands by his run and goes, yeah, he deserved to stay on here for several years after that. Man, it was just the hardest struggle as an Avengers fan to just go into the comic store every single week and go, can I start reading these again? No. But then he finally left and he went over to the X-Men, and I thought the X-Men were great in the beginning. I loved what he was doing over there. I looked at that and went, you know what, Avengers, hey, that's, you know, that was just a black spot on his record before the Avengers. He was my favorite guy. You know what, he could be my favorite guy again. And then after like the first year of his run on the X-Men, and I just looked at that like, oh God, this is just what he does now. Oh man. And it was around that time that I began to realize when he goes in there with a pitch on a book and an idea for a book, he can do great stuff. But he doesn't know how to wrap a book up, and he doesn't want to wrap a book up. He just wants to keep going and going and going. And he went on with the X-Men. Again, not as long with the Avengers, but for way too freaking long. And then he was doing Guardians at the same time. His Guardians was one of the most disappointing runs I have ever read. It was one of those things where it's like you have access to all this stuff and it's nothing but the stupid raccoon just breaking wise. And oh my God, like he just made me call Rocket Raccoon stupid. I love Rocket Raccoon. Why on earth you make me hate Rocket Raccoon? But there's still that glimmer of hope in Bendis that whenever he gets on a book that he really wants to write, I look at it and go, oh my God, this is it. He's happy now because he's actually doing stuff he enjoys and stuff he knows, and it's great. Like the Defenders. His Defenders book is one of the best things I've read from him in years. It's got that old Bendis spark to it again. So just to kind of sum up my feelings on Bendis, he's an amazing writer. When he has an editor come in there and tell him, good, stop, nope, not doing that, rewind, do it again. This dialogue right here, great, but doesn't work on this page. Redo that dialogue again. Okay, this storyline's going along, nope, you have to end that storyline now. Not gonna continue this for 3 freaking years and then hand it off to some other writer unfinished. You have to finish your plate, mister. That's kind of the feeling I get with Bendis, and I get the feeling that no editor at Marvel has been doing this. I've spoken to a couple of people who have connections over at Marvel, and they've said, yeah, he kind of just does what he does. We don't really tell him no. And I don't know how accurate those reports are, but when you look at his writing, it does kind of match that. And I get that feeling that, yeah man, you need someone to tell Bendis what to do. Bendis is kind of like the Hulk. He's great in battle when you have someone there to point him at something and tell him, smash. However, after he's done smashing, you kind of need Bruce Banner to come back in there. You can't just have the Hulk lounging around for hours after the battle's over, because if he doesn't have something to smash, he'll find something to smash. He'll just tear down a building for no reason. He'll start punching the other heroes. That's kind of what Bendis has been at Marvel. When he has somewhere to go, and someone to lead him, and someone to aim him, he is stunning. One of the best things about Marvel. He has not had that for a long time now. So yeah, the idea of Bendis leaving Marvel and going over to DC, I'm not gonna lie, I'm not exactly choked up about it. In fact, being totally honest, I'm kind of happy about it. I actually want to see what's going to happen. Maybe Bendis going back over to DC will actually reignite some kind of a spark in him. But also, man, being totally honest with you, there's been a lot of stuff that Marvel has been doing that people have not really enjoyed. I've talked about numerous times on this channel. And honestly, a lot of it I think Bendis kind of had a hand in. I'm not saying he was running the company the past couple of years, not that, but he did kind of have the keys to the kingdom. He was a guy who would go in there, do whatever he wanted on his books, and everybody else would have to just agree to it. Everybody else would have to go, well, I had plans over in my book for this character, but you just killed them. I had plans for this character in my book, you had them break up with my main character and take their child away. Well, guess I'm going to have to change everything now. Oh, you're going to now turn this character into something that none of us wanted them to be. Okay, that's great. And also, we've all been complaining about Marvel just having way too many events. I'm not saying Bendis was behind that, but Bendis is the one who handed the editors those matches. Bendis is the one who, back with Avengers Disassemble and House of M, came in there and went, yo, guys, you want to get this company big? You gotta go with events. Events is the way to go. I mean, Avengers Disassemble, House of M, he did not do Civil War, but then he came right back in with Secret Invasion, and then did Siege, and then he has done several ones after that. Dude, he was behind a lot of these big events. Don't get me wrong, if he didn't do those big events, Marvel still might have done other ones instead. But as I said, we've been complaining about the Marvel events. Bendis has not been fighting the events. Bendis has kind of been encouraging the events. So yeah, I'm very intrigued to see what is now going to happen over at Marvel. I especially want to know what's going to happen with the books that he was working on, because almost every single book that he was working on was characters who he had basically put his stamp on, went, those are mine, nobody touch them. I put them in the fridge with my name on it, nobody better drink out of that Miles Morales cup. That's mine, okay? So yeah, I really want to see what's going to happen, because yes, Jessica Jones, great invention. Miles Morales, great invention. But their books have been pretty stale for a pretty long time now, and they need fresh blood. They need new people in there. By the way, speaking of new people in there, Mariko Tamaki on Jessica Jones, Jason Reynolds on Miles Morales Spider-Man, David Walker on Defenders. There, you're welcome, done. And in case you're wondering about Iron Man, literally half the people you have working at your company could write a really good Iron Man book. I don't even have time to list them all off. Jason Aaron, Nick Spencer, Al Ewing. So yeah, I'm really interested in seeing what's going to happen to Marvel from this point forward, because it does kind of feel like now there's a power vacuum over there. Because yes, as I said, Brian Michael Bendis was not the guy running Marvel for the past decade. However, you can't give a guy like Brian Michael Bendis the keys to your kingdom and not expect him to completely repaint your kingdom. This dude has been changing major stuff at Marvel throughout his time there, and it's not even changes that like just affected his books. They were changes that affected everyone. So now that there's nobody out there really doing that, I'm wondering if that means maybe the writers at Marvel can finally be themselves again. Maybe the writers are going to get some more creative freedom. Because we did hear from the editorial staff that they're not going to do another major event for a year and a half. Granted, we still don't know what their definition of event is. However, it does look like they're going to tone down the whole we're going in there and forcing all these books to change based on a giant event. So now if the big writer who was also changing all these storylines is gone, does this mean that Marvel is just going to get to write whatever Marvel wants? Because I'm kind of okay with that. So yeah, in all honesty, when it comes to the future of Marvel, I'm being pretty positive about this. However, I know that I'm kind of alone in this because so many other people online have been pointing at this and saying, man, it's the death of Marvel. We knew this was gonna happen. Oh, Marvel's been screwing up too much recently and they just lost their last big writer. There's a couple of problems with that complaint. First off, last big writer, Marvel has tons of great writers. Although, I will admit, this is a complaint I have made about Marvel numerous times now. Marvel needs to learn how to advertise themselves. Marvel only knows how to advertise their events. They don't know how to talk about anything else at their company. And the same kind of goes for Bendis. The reason why so many people point at Bendis and go, oh, this is their big guy, is because, like I said, he has kind of had free reign. He's been going around doing whatever he wants for the past decade. But also because Bendis is the one guy that the staff at Marvel talks about non-stop. I don't just mean he's the one guy who everybody at Marvel likes to talk about and point at and say he's great. No, the editors over at Marvel will talk about everybody else working at Marvel. However, whenever Bendis gets on a book, they advertise the crap out of the fact that Bendis is on the book. Every single other writer out there, they have to advertise the book itself. Bendis could go on any title out there. He could start writing Speedball and they could just go, Brian Michael Bendis' Speedball. That's all they need to say. They advertise him like he's a character and he's their most popular character. He isn't really, man. That is, the name Brian Michael Bendis should not be what you sell a Brian Michael Bendis series on, but it's been what they've been doing. If all the writers at Marvel were plants in a garden, Brian Michael Bendis would be a massive oak tree and all the other ones would be struggling for air because Marvel just keeps going over and watering that one plant over and over and over again. It's like, guys, you have other people to talk about. So whenever I hear people out there going, oh my god, this was it. This was the last big name that they had. It's like, I'm sorry. Matthew Rosenberg, Jason Aaron, Charles Soule, Greg Pak, G. Willow Wilson, Kelly Thompson, Ta-Nehisi Coates, Jerry Dugan. How the hell is no one talking about Jerry freaking Dugan? Jerry Dugan wrote a better Avengers book than Bendis did and is writing one of their best titles right now, period, Guardians of the Galaxy. Nobody talks about Jerry Dugan. Dear God, why is no one talking about that guy? So yeah, I could keep going on and keep listing off all the people working over at Marvel, but oh my god, I just remembered that they just hired Donny Cates, my favorite writer in the indie scene right now, just got signed exclusively to Marvel. That's big freaking news, but Marvel doesn't talk about them. I should not have to stand up here and remind everyone of all the amazing people that are working over at Marvel. Marvel should be doing that them freaking selves. But no one knows anyone working at Marvel. They only know Bendis because Marvel has treated that guy better than they've treated Spider-Man. They could probably make Brian Michael Bendis trading cards and people would buy them because of how much Marvel hypes up Brian Michael Bendis. You can't just do that to one guy. You need to do that to your entire freaking roster of writers because you have so many damn good ones working over there. You need to let the world know we're gonna be fine without this guy. It's gonna be okay. However, on the other hand, I can understand why people, even people who don't like Brian Michael Bendis and are happy to see him not on books at Marvel, would still point at this and go, this is really bad news for Marvel because in the past year or so, Marvel has really ticked off a lot of their fans. Don't get me wrong, there's been some things that Marvel's been doing that have been building for a while, such as their overuse of massive events that have just been coming in and changing everything. That's one of those things that it's finally kind of reached a boiling point. But so many people now are angry at Marvel, and I've commented on this several times about how I disagree with many of the complaints that people have. However, at the same time, I do agree with some of them, and even the ones I disagree with, I still have to admit there's people out there who are angry about this. I can't pretend like those people don't exist. So, to have something like this happen at a time when everyone is just looking for an excuse to get those pitchforks and torches and head off to the castle to fight the monster, yeah man, it's not exactly good timing. The angry mob is coming to your house and they're just looking for any excuse at this point. This is an excuse. You need a lot of positive stories coming out of Marvel, and losing Brian Michael Bendis, even though, again, I myself view that as a positive, I know it's not going to look good on paper. It's hard to spin this thing as a positive, which is why Marvel, as I said, you need to learn how to advertise people aside from Michael Bendis. You have got so many amazing people working for you. Talk about them. For the love of God, talk about them. Tell every single one of them to get in front of a freaking camera right now and talk about how amazing the book is going to be. I mean, you lost Tom King, and oh my goodness, that guy who was writing that really great Vision book, he went back over to DC. Oh great. You have Saladin Ahmed working for you on Black Bolt. That book is taking up that Vision-shaped heart in my soul right now, and it's filling it rather nicely because that book is amazing. Talk about Black Bolt. Get people focusing on your good freaking books right now. So okay, that's enough talking about Marvel, because Marvel, listen, we don't know what's going to happen to them. The future is unwritten for them, but you know what? They're gonna be fine. They're gonna figure something out. They're gonna find a path through all this. They're gonna be A-okay, and even if that future is unwritten, I think that's actually kind of a good thing, because it's going to allow them to kind of be more experimental, come up with some really cool ideas. I can't wait to see what comes out of Marvel in the next couple of years. DC, on the other hand, so many people are looking over at Marvel and going, oh my goodness, Bendis has left Marvel to go DC? What does this mean for the future of Marvel? You're asking the wrong question. What does this mean for the future of DC? Yes, here's the thing about DC. Ever since Rebirth, DC has been really freaking good, and it's for two big reasons. One, the editorial staff has a direction. They know what they want to do. They have someone giving everyone a clearly defined direction to go in, so their entire universe feels cohesive. It feels like it's making sense at the moment. And we all like that direction that's going in. If someone was at the top giving them a bad direction to go in, we would be looking at that and going, oh, this is bad news. But no, we like what's happening. We can't wait to see what happens with all these characters. And also, the characters who aren't moving in that direction, they're being left alone to just do whatever they want. These writers are actually being allowed to craft stories around these characters. But now, you have Bendis going in there. And as I said, Bendis is a guy known for doing stuff in his books without caring about what's happening in everyone else's books, and everyone else just has to adapt to that. Everyone else has to go, oh, he just did this thing to the character in my book? Well, can't really fight Bendis on this. Guess that's gonna be the big change to my character forever now. Cool, I'll figure out a way to work with that. Oh, fun. But the other thing is, as I said, Bendis wasn't really a guy you told no to. He was a guy that Marvel gave the keys to the kingdom on, and he just kind of ran things however he wanted to for the past decade. He is not someone that people came in and told, no, stop, don't do that, you're not allowed to, that's not what we're doing here. He just did whatever he wanted. He did not really listen to the editorial staff. However, as I said, at DC, about half their books right now are very editor heavy. They are books where the editorial staff is going, this is what we're doing. This is the direction these books are going in at the moment. This is the plan that you have to follow. Bendis don't play that. Bendis doesn't like to be told what to do on his books. He likes to decide what he does on his books. So, how's he going to react to all this? In fact, I really don't want to start speculating about why Bendis left Marvel, because honestly, I view that as being kind of irresponsible because we don't know anything about this. This is going to be one of those things where we're not going to learn any of the behind the scenes stuff for about 5 years on this, when someone just blurts something out in an interview and they go, oh my goodness, I should have said that, and then everything just starts crumbling down around that. It's going to be a long time before we learned why this happened. Maybe Bendis was mad at Marvel, maybe Marvel was mad at Bendis, maybe both of them just decided, you know what, maybe it's time we finally moved on. They just came to a mutual agreement to go their separate ways. So I do think it's irresponsible for me to come in here and just give you my theories and speculations on what I think happened. However, that's pretty much what the majority of my channel is, so why should I stop now? So, this is what I think might have happened, and again, just to clarify, I'm pulling this completely out of my butt. So with Marvel Legacy, we know that a lot of their older characters are coming back and replacing the newer characters, and we also know a lot of the progress that these characters have made over the last couple of years are being completely undone. Like for example, Peter Parker is going back to the Daily Bugle. Okay, But we also know that old Cap is coming back, old Thor is coming back, old Wolverine is coming back, old Iron Man is coming back, and it was just recently announced that old Hulk was coming back. And I started looking at this going, you know what, so many people point at the editors at Marvel and go, oh, well, this is all the people at the top. They're the ones who made them change in the beginning. These writers, they didn't want to change these characters. And honestly, I don't think that's the case. I swear to you this is true. 2 days ago, I was having this discussion with someone in which I said, you know what, they're bringing back all these old characters, but they're bringing back the old Hulk. Greg Pak doesn't want to bring back the old Hulk. Greg Pak wants to keep Amadeus Cho as Hulk. So what's going to happen there? And Brian Michael Bendis, he loves Riri. He wants Riri to be a big success. He wants Riri to be the new Miles. He doesn't want to get rid of Riri. So what's going to happen when Marvel comes in here and not only tells him you have to bring back Tony, but also Dr. Doom, yeah, we're going to make him a villain again. We don't like him being a hero. He has to go back to being a villain. Bendis isn't the type of guy who appreciates people coming in here and scrapping his ideas. And then literally 2 days after I had that discussion with someone, Bendis just up and leaves Marvel. And it has me actually wondering, could this be one of those things where Bendis actually got told, yeah, you gotta get rid of Riri, and Dr. Doom goes back to being a villain, and he was like, yeah, I'm not doing that. And so he just left. And if that's the case, what's he gonna do when he gets over to DC, where they're like, yeah, we have a very specific plan that we're following. You can't go off the path of this plan. Which leads me into my next really big, wild, crazy theory. The reason why DC has had one vision and one direction that it's been heading in for the past 1.5 years now is because of Jeff Johns. Jeff Johns came on down and said, guys, I gotta fix this universe. I'm gonna get you back on track. And everything that DC has been doing over the past 1.5 years has been following Jeff Johns' plan. But Jeff Johns has to work on the movies. He has to work on the TV shows. He can't be here to keep fixing the universe over and over again. He can't keep being there to give everyone a specific plan to follow. However, Jeff Johns is very good friends with Brian Michael Bendis. And if Jeff Johns leaves, he's going to have to trust someone with the keys to that kingdom. Maybe someone else who has had the keys to a different kingdom for the past decade. So what if the reason why Bendis is agreeing to come over to DC isn't just so he can write some DC books? What if it's because Jeff Johns is like, listen, I gotta leave and go to Hollywood, and I need to trust someone to run this place while I'm gone. You're the man for the job. And now Bendis, he's not going to be the creative director. He is still going to be a writer, but as I said, he was just a writer over at Marvel, and yet still he had major influence over that universe. Could he be the new guy that's basically going to go, oh, here's what we're going to do for the next giant massive storyline? Because if you'll notice, DC, they didn't do massive giant events the way that Marvel did, but they're starting to do giant massive events the way that Marvel did. And maybe Bendis is going to come in here and go, hey, that's a really good start. Here's where we go from there next. And this is the next event after that. And here's the big storyline that we're going to do with that one. What if he's now going to be the guy who creates the path for all these DC books? I would be very interested in seeing what a bunch of DC fans have to say about that, because I have seen so many people out there going, oh man, what's going to happen to Marvel? It's like, DC, you realize your entire universe is about to change. You just hired a guy who is not satisfied staying in the background. This is a guy who likes to map out universes. But okay, those are all the weird, crazy theories I've had. Let's move into the fun speculations, which everybody has been asking, what books is Bendis going to be put on over at DC? And I have actually asked a lot of people that today. I went to my comic shop and I asked all the other employees there what they thought about this, and everybody had a different reaction. Everybody had a different answer to this, and I think that's really cool that everybody out there has a different book they would like to see Bendis on, because as I said, I have many problems with Bendis, but if Bendis can pull back and be put on the right book, he can do really good stuff. So honestly, the book that I would love to see him on, Blue Beetle. I'm just gonna go ahead and say it right there, because yeah, some of the best stuff that he did was high school drama superhero stuff. His stuff with Ultimate Spider-Man was amazing. So you give him another high school level superhero and it could be great, except that Bendis is known for writing really quirky, jokey dialogue, In the current Blue Beetle book, it's Jaime Reyes teaming up with Ted Kord, the most jokey hero over at DC Comics. You give him a book with those two Blue Beetles and Booster Gold keeps popping up every now and again, I think he would nail it. Also, it's Blue Beetle. You can't have Blue Beetle change the entire universe. You can't have him change that entire comic book industry. But he can make some really darn cool changes to Blue Beetle. He can do some really cool stuff with that character. Man, I would love to read a Brian Michael Bendis Blue Beetle book. Or you know what? Even if you just want to have it be Blue Beetle and Booster Gold, that would be amazing. Or another thing that people discussed in my store, Shadow Pact. For anybody who doesn't remember, Shadow Pact wasn't the big powerful magicians of the DC Universe. They weren't the Justice League Dark guys. They were the loser magicians. They were guys like 8 Detective. They were those guys who came in here. They were the B-class like magic users, but they were the guys who were summoned whenever all hope was lost. Whenever the A-class guys couldn't solve something, they're the ones everyone had to rely on. Dude, that could be great. That could be a great book for him. Granted, Brian Michael Bendis cannot write magic to save his life. Every single thing he wrote with Doctor Strange in the Avengers, oh boy, that was some bad Doctor Strange writing. But just the dialogue and character interactions on a book like that, man, he could nail that. I think he would be great. Or also, Shazam. I think he could do a wonderful Shazam. Again, as soon as Billy Batson gets to the Rock of Eternity and you gotta start doing magic stuff, yeah, he can't really write magic. But Billy Batson, I think he could do some great stuff with the Marvel family. Plus, Shazam always had really weird, quirky villains. Bendis loves weird, quirky villains. He could do wonderful stuff with that. Aside from Shazam, though, I don't think any of those other two are happening. What is going to happen? I will put $10 down right now. If anybody wants to take me up on this bet, I will donate $10 to the charity of your choice if I am wrong about this. He's going to be on Justice League. I know for a fact he will be on Justice League. As I said, I'm putting money down on this bet right now. Simply because, yeah man, everybody has been pointing at how good all the books over at DC have been ever since Rebirth. Justice League is the one that everybody is pointing to like, it's passable, it's alright. And Justice League should not be passable. It should be their A-class book. It should be the one that changes all the books around it. It should be the one that everybody looks at like, oh man, this is the front runner for our entire universe. This is the book we point at and brag about. And instead it's just like, are they making a Justice League book? Alright, I guess, it's there, it's on the shelf, whatever, it's fine. They don't want it to be that. So they're gonna bring Bendis on. And they just announced that Christopher Priest was going to be writing Justice League. I can't really see DC letting Christopher Priest write Justice League for more than about 6 issues. And by the time that he's done with a 6-issue storyline, that would be about the time that Bendis comes on board over at DC. So it's lining up pretty darn well. So yeah, I totally believe he is going to do Justice League. However, Bendis doesn't only do one book. So, they would give him Justice League, they would probably give him some weird, quirkier character, so I'm still holding out for Blue Beetle on that one. But also, aside from that, I think that they would just give him 2 completely new titles, but big titles. Like, big things that people have been asking for a long time. I would not be shocked if he did Justice Society, because we know that Justice Society is coming back. We know Justice Society is going to come back, we know Legion is going to come back. I can't see him on Legion. Listen, Bendis can do a lot of things. I don't see any of those things that he does matching up with Legion of Superheroes. But Justice Society, that's one of those ones that's like, yeah, I can see them going, you know what? We can put him on Justice Society. And considering that this is a guy who wrote 2 Avengers books at the same time and 2 X-Men books at the same time, having him to write 2 Justice books at the same time, not that far of a pitch. That's not something out of the realm of possibility. But then aside from that, someone actually suggested something at my store that I had been thinking of, which is that Young Justice cartoon is coming back. And recently in the comics, they did kind of tease that Connor Kent might find his way back into this universe. So someone actually hinted at my store that, okay, well what about this? What if they bring back Connor Kent, have him team up with Tim Drake, and they go on a quest for Bart Allen, and we get a Young Justice book again, and Brian Michael Bendis is writing that. Honestly, I could see that. He's done some pretty decent teenage superheroes before, As I said, his Ultimate Spider-Man was amazing. So, doing a team of teenage superheroes, I could see that. Teen Titans also, that's more of the obvious choice in my mind, and also considering that Brian Michael Bendis kind of likes to make the characters in his book the center of their reality and the biggest, most important character in that reality, giving him a book where he's writing Damian Wayne, that actually does kind of match up, and I can actually see that happening. Or maybe with his love of writing street-level heroes, I could totally see him on a Green Arrow book. Or maybe when you think about what he's done over the years with his solo series Powers, that has been his personal passion project, maybe putting him on a new GCPD book could totally work. But there you go, those are all my thoughts at the moment. I'm sure as soon as I stop recording, I'm going to think of 9 other things I wanted to say in this. But as I said, this is a story that's developing, and it is a crazy, insane story. It's one of those things I never thought I would ever be making a video about, because I never thought it would ever actually happen, but it's happening. And basically, to sum up my feelings about, I'm very intrigued about the future of these two universes, because Brian Michael Bendis is the biggest wild card in the comic book industry, and he's not a wild card you just put to the side. He's a wild card that changes the entire deck. So Marvel is going to change a lot, and DC is going to change a lot. And I don't know how. And that is both exciting and frightening. So there you go, folks. Not exactly the uplifting way to go out, but you know what? That's the future for you. Who knows what it holds for all of us. But let me know your thoughts in the comments down below or on Twitter and Tumblr and Twitch at Professor Thorgy. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. And if you like these videos, make sure you share them around the web. And make sure that you click that subscribe button, because we do comic class every single week on this channel, as well as tons of other fun, geeky shows every single other day of the week. Thank you guys for tuning in. Come back next time. Bye.